I was driving back home from my grandma's house on Thanksgiving last year. It's about a 45-minute drive, which isn't too bad if you ask me. It is totally worth seeing my family and being able to pig out on whatever my grandma makes everyone for dinner. I had a great time there, and everything went well. The food was amazing just like it always was, and I love being able to see my family. So it was just your average Thanksgiving, or actually, maybe not so much, because something horrible happened to me on my way home from leaving my grandma's. On my way to my grandma's house, just about as soon as I got into the car and started heading that way, I realized I was really low on fuel, and that I should probably stop and get some gas. I was feeling lazy, so I decided I was just going to wait and get some gas at a gas station nearby my grandma's house. I don't know why, but it must have completely left my mind, because I had forgotten that I was supposed to get gas when I got close to my grandma's. It wasn't until I arrived at my grandparents' house that I realized I had totally forgot to get gas. It's okay, I thought to myself. I'll just get gas first thing when I leave, on my way home. I was sure I had at least 30 miles before I ran completely out of fuel, and there was a gas station maybe only 10 miles away. I had an old 2001 beat-up Silverado that had been put through hell by its last two previous owners, with over 275,000 miles on it. And I guess the fuel gauge wasn't as accurate as I thought it would be, because on my way home, my truck completely stalled. I tried to call my grandma, but I wasn't getting any service. She lived kind of in the middle of nowhere, and I was even more in the middle of nowhere now, it felt like, being parked off on the side of the road with no means of transportation, other than my own 2 feet. And with no way of calling anyone, I was quite desperate. Luckily, I had a gas can in the back of my pickup. Of course it didn't have gas, but it was good that I had it, because with that, at least I could walk up to the nearest gas station and fill it up with gas, and then walk back to the truck, fill the truck up, and then I would be on my way. It was pretty late though, and it was dark, and there weren't many houses around, so it was really creepy. I must have had a 3-mile walk, I estimated. Maybe after 15 minutes of walking, a truck rolls up behind me. Old Faithful broke down on you, huh? Hey bud, why don't you hop in? I'll take you to the gas station. No thank you sir, I said. I politely declined, but the man seemed to take offense to it. Are you kidding me? You're just gonna walk up there when I'm offering you a ride? What do you think I'm going to do? Try and hurt you or something? He asked. No, you see, he cut me off and said, just get in the truck. Unless you really want to walk another 45 minutes to the gas station and at least an hour back, I could have you back here to your truck in less than 10 minutes, he said. Somehow he convinced me to get in the truck. Man, I really wish I never would have though, because I almost died that night. You see, my grandparents lived in a nice area, but they have been hearing things in the news about people going missing lately. So I was really skeptical about it. This man wouldn't take no for an answer, and I was feeling really lazy. He did a really good job at convincing me to get in, because I went against my gut feeling, which I never do. When I got in the truck, he was reassuring me that he wasn't just some weirdo, and that he really just felt like doing a good deed because he had nothing better to do anyways. That made me feel a bit better for a brief moment, but it didn't take long before I realized something was terribly wrong. I couldn't even make out what he was saying anymore. He started like mumbling to himself over and over, and I asked if he was okay, but he didn't answer me. Only a minute or so after that, he drove right past the gas station where we were supposed to be stopping at. Hey man, you passed the gas station, I said. That's when he looked at me directly in my eyes and said, you don't make the rules here. I do. Now shut your mouth if you want everything to be okay. I'm going to tell you right now that you're going to do everything I say, or things are going to end very badly for you. I started freaking the hell out and screaming at him to pull over and let me out. He was screaming at me, telling me to shut up over and over again. I tried to open the door, and my plan was that I was going to jump out when he started slowing down, like towards a turn or a stop sign, but I couldn't get the door opened, and I couldn't see to find the door handle because it was so dark. I realized that the door had been rigged and tampered in such a way that you can only open it from the outside. Luckily, I keep pepper spray on me for protection. I knew it was risky to pepper spray someone while they were driving, but clearly I was running out of options. I sprayed him, and then we started swerving. I tried to steer the wheel the best I could to make sure that when we stopped or crashed, that I would be as safe as possible. I braced myself the best I could, and we crashed right into a ditch, straight into a small tree. I hit my head on the passenger window pretty hard, and I felt a bit disoriented for a moment. When I became fully aware of what was going on again, I started panicking even more. Luckily, the man was knocked out cold, and I was able to crawl over him and get out of the driver's side door. I grabbed my gas can and ran as fast as I could for like a mile back to that gas station where we were supposed to stop at and get gas. I ran all the way there without stopping for a single breath. I was really out of shape at the time, and I have never ran like that in my life. But you'd be surprised of what you're capable of when your survival instinct kicks in. When I got there, I told the cashier what was going on and that I needed to use a phone to call the police. The police showed up in a matter of minutes and drove me back to my car. They made sure I didn't need medical assistance before letting me off on my way. I gave the best description to the police that I could, in hopes it would help to find the man. Apparently the truck was still there, but he was gone. The truck he was in was actually stolen, so they still have no idea who he was. I really hope they find him though, before he can hurt somebody else. I was driving home from work one night. I work second shift at a hospital, so when I leave and clock out of work, it's always late. Anywhere from 11 p.m. to 1 a.m. Sometimes even later than that. It really just depends. I have about a 25-minute drive home from work every day. Although that's not ideal, the pay makes it well worth it. Usually I take the highway home because it's much quicker. But depending on my mood, sometimes I'll take the back roads home, or even the long way through town. This particular night I took the highway because I was ready to be home and relax. I had been working a lot of overtime back then, so I was pretty beat. Somewhere along the way of driving, I was probably almost halfway home. There was a car that practically came out of nowhere, it felt like. I usually didn't see many cars on my way home from work, because it was always late when I left work. Like I said, and usually not many people were out. This car came from behind me going at least 90 probably, and they zoomed right past me. I thought that was a little unusual because I usually don't see people speeding through here, especially not at night, because again, like I said, there's hardly any activity in the area at this time of night. I didn't think too much of it though. But as the car got a bit further past me, it started swerving into the other lanes, like really bad. And then I noticed that the car's speed was fluctuating heavily. When it would speed up, only shortly after it would slow down, very quickly. Then they would step on the brakes harshly. And then only a brief moment later, the car would speed back up like really fast. This happened over and over again. I felt like it may have been worse than just a drunk driver, so I got as close as I could without being suspicious to try and get a better look. I could barely see because I was trying to keep my distance and maintain my safety in case it was a drunk driver. I'm glad I witnessed this though. Even though it traumatized me seeing this may have saved this woman's life. Because the man driving was beating a woman that was in the backseat repeatedly. Some sort of object it looked like. I couldn't believe my eyes. Right then I called the police and I told them what was going on, where we were, and which direction we were going. I told them the license plate number and every detail I could about the vehicle and the two people that were in the car. The dispatcher told me I shouldn't be following them, but I didn't care if I got in trouble. I just wanted to make sure that that lady in the car was going to be okay, and that that man would get caught. I followed them probably for like 7 or 8 minutes, until I heard sirens in the distance. The man started speeding up even more, as much as his PT Cruiser would let him, I assume. I got out of the way of the police and slowed down my speed just a bit, but I tried to stay with him as much as possible to keep a close eye, and so I could talk to the police if I needed when they caught him. Eventually he swerved off of the highway into a big open field area and spun out. Then the car barrel rolled probably like 5 times at least, before it came to a complete stop. The man ditched the car and tried running away, but the police caught up to him quickly and tased him and arrested him. One of the officers got the girl out of the car, and it was evident that she was beaten very, very badly, with cuts and bruises all over her body and face. Apparently she had been kidnapped by the man just 45 minutes prior from a bar, out of town nearby in the same county. Turns out the man was wasted as well. I'm sure he got charged with over 5 different felonies and will be going to prison for a very long time. I will be testifying at court for this lady as a court witness sometime later this year. I'm happy I did what I did though, because I did what I thought was right, and I'm glad I listened to my intuition to stay behind them and to follow them and find out what was happening. If you have a gut feeling about something, there's a good chance it's valid. Fortunately though, that situation could have been a lot worse. Someone could have died that night easily, any one of us. The man almost ran into me a few separate times, but I felt like I needed to follow him until he got caught. And yes, I would do it again. I would never have a single regret about doing what I feel like is right. I was supposed to be hanging out with my friend one night after he got out of work. I was picking him up when he got out, because at the time he didn't have a car. He told me he would be getting out at 7 p.m. I got there like 15 minutes early though. I texted him when I got there to tell him that I was there. He texted me back a few minutes later and told me that he was sorry and that he was going to be getting out a little later than he expected, and said that he should be done in about an hour. I was a little upset for a second, but really it wasn't that big of a deal, and it definitely wasn't his fault anyways, so I wasn't upset at him at all. I was only slightly annoyed at the situation of itself, but only for a brief moment. Instead of sitting there just doing nothing and waiting for him, I decided to go kill some time by driving around and listening to music. Not too long after driving, my stomach started growling. Really the only thing I could think of to eat was like Taco Bell or McDonald's. I ended up settling for McDonald's, as it was closer than Taco Bell was. I got my food and then I ate in the parking lot. When I finished eating, I still had like 30 or 40 minutes of time to kill. I didn't know how else to kill time other than by driving around. As I was driving around listening to music and on my phone probably texting my friends. Stupid, yeah I know, to be driving around and texting, but I was a teenager, so yeah, I'm sure you're not too surprised. I didn't really have anywhere specific in mind that I was going. I was kind of just driving and figuring it out as I went. I ended up on some back roads, which I drove on for about 10 minutes I would say. I was driving real slow, and there were nowhere near as many cars around as there were on the main roads, so this way I could get away with being on my phone a little bit more, because I wouldn't have to pay as much attention. Suddenly I noticed there was a car behind me. I didn't think much of it at all. I just had to speed up a little bit though, because I was going well under the speed limit and I didn't want to piss anyone off. The car caught up to me quickly though, and it got really close to me before he had to slow down. Otherwise he would have hit me. What the heck is wrong with people, I thought to myself. I mean seriously, I don't think this man could have gotten any closer to me without hitting my back bumper. I was starting to get a little bit annoyed because he was following me like this for at least 3 or 4 miles at this point. I thought about brake checking this jerk, but really that would have made me no better and if not worse in this situation. Either way, what he was doing was very unnecessary to say the least. There was like no oncoming traffic, so he could have easily just passed me at any point in time. No problem at all. My friend texted me and said that he should be getting out in like 15 or 20 minutes. I said okay, I started heading that way. So I was probably like 15 minutes away from his work and I wanted to make sure I was there on time when he got out. It wasn't until I made a few turns that I started to question if the guy behind me was following me. I had made like 4 left turns by now in a row and he was still behind me. He started to back off just a bit though, after tailing me for like 10 minutes straight. But he was certainly still behind me following. The car followed me all the way to the gas station where my friend Jacob worked. The gas station wasn't in the middle of nowhere exactly, but it was in a rural area. There was maybe 2 to 3 houses nearby, and not a whole lot of anything else going on if I'm being honest. When I got there and pulled into the gas station, and I saw that he pulled in there with me, and I saw that there were no other cars besides mine and the guy who was following me. That made me feel like something bad was about to happen. The guy parked right next to me, and with his window down, he kept trying to get my attention. I tried my absolute best to not look at him and pretend like I didn't hear him, but that's pretty hard to do, considering he literally got out of the car and legit started banging on my window and screaming at me, telling me to unlock the door. I was panicking, trying to pull my phone out of my pocket so I could call the police. But right before I was about to call the cops, Jacob walked out and said, "Hey, what are you doing? Get the hell out of here, man." "Or what? What are you going to do about it?" the strange man said. He then started charging Jacob and threatening him. Jacob lifted his shirt and revealed he had a handgun. That's right when the man backed off and went to his car and sped off. Still to this day, I don't know what that guy was trying to do, and what his plan was or whatever. Maybe he was on drugs or something and mistook me for someone else. I don't know. Either way, I'm thankful Jacob was there, and that he was able to scare him off. Jacob got in the car with me and we sped off as well. "What the hell was that all about?" he asked me. I told him I didn't know, and that I had no idea who that guy was, and that he had been following me for over 15 minutes. This guy was huge, and I mean way bigger than I was, and was clearly trying to pick on people who were smaller than him, by using his size to his advantage, just like a bully. You see, a lot of people hate guns, and I understand why, but I hate the crazy people that get their hands on guns more. I think it's important to be able to protect yourself though, from those crazy people, because I never would have expected something like this to happen to me ever. I know Jacob has a concealed pistol license, but in a workplace I'm not sure if he was legally allowed to carry or not, and that might have been why he didn't want me to make a police report. But I'm sure glad he had protection that day. I'm just worried that I might run into that guy again. I'm also worried that he will try and do this to someone else as well. Every day I'm more and more shocked at just how many crazy people there really are in this world. Hopefully I never have to hear of him again, unless it's that he's locked up in jail or in prison.